ba ba. Hello? Hello. Okay, I thought I'd play this. Let's see if there's any ads. Nope. Cool, that way I can kind of just get started. Bing! So, I found this video today. This is where I came across Shaligrams. Let's see. How's this sound? It's probably high. Sounds nice. But this is where I first saw Shaligrams. I knew it was this stone. I did not know it was a Praveen Mohan episode. So shout out to Praveen, who's I basically went through his videos and opened anything that looked like it might be because it wasn't in the like thumbnail. And then it happened to be that where this one started playing was at the Shaligram, because I guess that's where I left it off. Also, I thought I would set up some rotating Shaligrams. These are newer ones to my inspection group. But yeah, so that's where that came from, and how I came across that was from this video. I was trying to find where did I first see Shaligrams. This is part 2. I didn't even realize that this had a part 2. Oh, that's probably. Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Looking for Shaligram. No Shaligram. September 24. It's such a high energy time around the 26th of September for some reason. In my experience, interesting things have happened around that time, such as my introduction to Shaligrams, perhaps. I was trying to find if I documented the moment. That would be cool. It's like just kind of going about doing something, and then because that happens sometimes in my videos where I'm just doing something and then I come across something of interest that becomes substantial in my work. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted, so I posted this. I love this, dudes. I mean, I can see him without the lines pretty well. I mean, maybe it's more defined with the lines, especially around the eyes. certainly can see this portion, which is all rivers. And mountains. Rivers and mountains, I guess. Interesting that this was mountains, and then his body is more so rivers that I drew, although is his foot is more so mountains. But like what he's sitting on down here. And then his third eye is Damodar Kund. What is Damodar Kund, one might ask? Why, thank you for asking. Damodar Kund is actually here, but in this general area, and particularly this riverbed in association to this area, is where shaligrams are found exclusively in the Himalayas, but with association to Damodar Kund, which is the third eye of the Buddha. I love it. I just love that. It's so cool. But anyway, so I think we talked about these. We certainly talked about this one. I have something else I wanted to talk about. So let's go back up. I came across this YouTube video that I was thinking about doing a reaction to because it's really good. The issue is the audio is atrocious in terms of doing a reaction to it. It has to be really loud and I can hear it. So here's the channel and the video. It's basically, one thing he points out is that ammonites really don't have soft tissue evidence, and talks about it a little bit, which I thought was it's just nice to hear, because I'm reminded when I say that it's anomalous, and to a point where they talk about it like that, like it is, where it's talked about like that, where there's no soft tissue evidence of or very little, and what is so little that it becomes suspect, because it's not clear. It's not like they're finding soft tissue, they're finding something that they are labeling the soft tissue. Oh, this is the gut, for example. But it's really just some like an anomaly within the ammonite that is being labeled that way. Whether or not it is that is not as clear. When there is so little evidence, it is strongly suggestive that maybe it's not even soft tissue. Because there's so little evidence of it. My interpretation is that shaligrams are not fossils, they're pseudo-fossils, and they were etched during the flood process. Which is a long story. I started off with basically classical mechanics and thinking about physics and the Big Bang, and how, not the Big Bang, but the observations that are basis of the Big Bang, and trying to figure out, is there a way in which these observations can be produced by gravity, by gravitational redshift particularly, all distant redshifted galaxies, Hubble's law, because it's a correlation that was labeled a law so as to introduce a new underlying fundamental thing, expansion of space, but it's just a correlation. And besides the point, that led me down this path where when I saw this Shaligram, I was just like, what are these things? And notice it's not even like the video is only 3 years old. The amount of Shaligram content I've created since seeing this stone is incredible. I don't know if I would have seen a Shaligram by now. I don't know how the future would have panned out if I did not see a Shaligram in this video. I might still be on Twitter. Fucking... Oh, funny. Funny because I think it might be true too. Oh my god. I mean, I was like discovering Dwarka. So that wasn't like, it wasn't like the Shaligram was the only thing going on. It's just such a large aspect of what I've studied, integral to everything else. Oh my, the timing. But so I've come to interpret them to be etched by water currents, highly pressurized, that were basically contained by pressure. So like this. So in this instance, an eddy is generally forming here is my interpretation. So I'm thinking about it. What's going on exactly to like yield this outcome? What is exactly necessary to do this? And well, first of all, there's an eddy. That much is like clear. There's got to be an eddy that is etching around the boundary. At least there. We can't really tell within as well what happened there in the region, except for the boundaries that form from the process. But we can tell at least like a furthest out boundary existed where this eddy pushed into surrounding pressures from around the structure. That's not necessarily from current flows in the directions that I drew arrows, just from pressures, like literally surrounding pressures. I don't think I need to explain that any further, but then imagine that this eddy is contained by these surrounding pressures, so it cannot get larger in terms of like radius. It can't grow to a larger radius because the surrounding pressure pushes against it. So I thought maybe we can think about like what is happening then to this flow that would be experiencing that kind of thing. Still got this open. No. I'll probably pop something up here. Maybe. I'll be right back. Okay. Pardon me. I'm too embarrassed. It's embarrassing. So, let's just say, if we go back to the Shaligram, here, um, in general, for there to be an eddy, there tend to be tangential current flow interactions. Although in this case, I'm not so certain with these surrounding things here. So my thought is that, like, let's just do it with this thing. Is that instead of a, like, actually 90-degree kind of interaction, there's a current that's going especially here, and another current, possibly even, like, this red current going opposite direction. So they're going opposite direction, but what I was getting at is possibly even where some opposite direction is happening more like this, where there's then like this red current's flow also maybe is directed down here, and maybe the blue one is below it again down here, for example. I'm not saying that's happening here. Another thing I notice on this, just worth mentioning, is the chakra that starts here. So if you notice this, we'll just, without drawing it, it's got tears. Kind of resembling a chakra shape going on. Almost as if, like, maybe over here was also, that was energetically related to what was going on up here. Like maybe this was behaving as a chakra that energetically would have been coupled to a chakra down here that could have been etched into the stone if the right circumstances were there, but instead we just have a single eddy and this other, like, energetic tap-in chakra down here just didn't actually couple. Like, it only reached here. Maybe that limited the interaction in a way, because I feel like if this was, like, what it was trying to do was, like, adjust the ammonite, because they're all essentially trying to form ammonites. But let's get back to here and just kind of draw this. So currents generally flowing in a manner that produce an eddy. And in this case, it's counterclockwise. As for reasons we'll talk about. So there's just an eddy. That's not like anything necessarily inducing structure in the stone. Like, it's starting to form, but then it, like, pushes out its boundaries. So then it... Alright, let's go ahead and to a lighter color of just surrounding pressures again that are, like, flexible in that they can be pushed against. So as this eddy forms, a flow is entering into some region between the pressure that is basically a container in which the eddy is forming. And that flow pushes out the boundaries of the eddy. So then the eddy grows to some size that is essentially in balance with as far as it can push out the boundary of the surroundings. So it has now pushed out the boundaries and is no longer able to push out the boundaries of the surroundings. So then, my thought is, it basically, in order to have, like, new current is flowing into this. There's flow entering into this eddy that is then, like, increasing the eddy's energy. And it has to, like, do something. It can't just push back against this flow here. This flow is overwhelming it, so it's coming in, and the surroundings are no longer able to be overwhelmed enough to expand the space. So then that starts to create turbulence and more like rigidity in the boundaries, harder boundaries that then start to actually etch into the stone, especially. But let's ignore this here. A dull hum. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's a little irritating, honestly. From the rotation. The speed was the best speed for, yeah. So my thought is that in order to, like, continue to grow the circumference of the current of the eddy, it actually buckles so that it goes around like this. But then as it returns to the starting point of the eddy, say at the North Pole here or whatever, at some pole, some starting point of the eddy, as it returns there, there's pressure in front of it because there's so much current there that it cannot actually go that way, so it ends up being pushed. And again, because the surrounding pressures are still there, surrounding pressures are still there. So it can't, like, go this way because that pressure is holding it in. So instead, it goes this way, like this, and then connects back to itself like this, so that it's essentially has like a knuckle. And maybe I'm doing this a little too like one step, where it probably does like this first and just kind of buckles, but then it buckles to some point that it actually possibly going the other way. Like it could end up doing where it buckles like this. And then that pushes some flow this way, which then basically goes this way, while this is still going around the other direction. My thought was it goes, so I guess it could be doing this. It's unclear in my immediate assessment, at least, which option it's doing. It's possible, pardon that terrible drawing, that it's doing something like that, or it just flows in a singular way and maybe goes underneath, or maybe goes underneath. That actually makes a lot of sense. Like it physically erodes down and starts to go into the stone by doing something like this. So this was my initial thought, is it does something like this. So if we imagine it does that, but then it goes underneath here, so it's down an actual layer, so that when it comes back here, it's actually like down a little bit also, because like current is also occupying that space from the flow that is in this eddy that is like fueling it. So then it erodes more further down, and then over time produces something like this. Is what I was thinking. But again, like this is kind of like a chakra counter to this. And then in here, this is very common. So this is very common for it to be like this. And so my assessment was that it is counterclockwise because of right here, these little nooks that go in. And then even like here. Into that resistance. And then gets stopped. And then it goes around that stoppage. So it's creating a cut and then around, cut around to bend. So it's bending this way. That is my assessment of that. So I wanted to, I don't know where this will go, honestly. Don't know where this will go. Because I'm thinking, so we've got this flow that's doing this thing. Just over and over, but also down and in, and like eroding into the stone to create the structure. Oh yeah, one other thing is, like, as it does this, my thought is like it basically would be forming like something more like that at the top, but then it gets like short-circuited across to create like more of this rounded, because these are always very much like this shape where they're like that. This shape is very common in these, but where it has that roundedness to it, it's not like very sharp, but it still has some relationship, it seems, to some stage of the current flow that's here. But then it's like going around this way, creating this loop where it's eroding around that center area, where then, like, the only remaining portion here is uneroded because the flow is being directed this way and through here. So this area just becomes like susceptible to just being short-circuited, and it gets removed, leading to a current that then like also flows more around like this, while some of the current is wrapping like this. Although again, it could be like seeding a counterflow nucleus. Okay, so I just went back to that just to get to this idea that we've got this like nub thing where the current is flowing around it to like that and is actually, in the case we just saw, cutting into it a bit to do something like this. So my thought is, what if this current like has options here depending on the circumstances, where it can like loop around like this and go back this way, but maybe it can like cut into this behind it, like, and start to form an eddy around it like that way, and make a chakra type feature out of it in more earnest as a function though of these things happening too. Because my thought is it was essentially trying to redirect the current enough to like to make it do something more like this out of this area, like a chakra is. And not in this like I'm not drawing it to like scale to this one. They're unrelated essentially, but where it has like actual tier structures, and then the like layers to it across. I don't know if I actually made this in a way that I would match in some well-made way. Okay, good enough. But my thought is the case we're seeing here is very like one planar. It's very planar, or it's eddying in a plane and then drilling down, but still eddying in that same plane as it like goes down into the stone, possibly because the pressures around it are like still around it down into the stone as it goes down through like that. Feel like these are related, although this is not always in the presence of such features when these happen. So it's probably doesn't necessarily require those, just an eddy that is planar, forming a plane, but also being contained, so it is forced to buckle like this. But my thought is like a different energy of that same process can then start to form a chakra out of this upper nub that starts to etch like this to actually create the beginnings of a chakra that becomes more like this. Like if this top one actually was more like down there and then across that way in terms of the structure than where I drew it. Where like it's generally starting a chakra at some start point that's more down here and then cutting in down here, which we then see like early phase of, and then it does it more and more. Just kind of thinking it through. I don't know. Essentially, what I'm getting at is by doing this, maybe it like creates some kind of pressure away that redirects the flow more to ramp more. Which maybe would, in the like larger circle thing that I will now draw like that, would, instead of like creating that internal section, would like divide it almost, would essentially go down like to a point where then it would hit some resistance and go like sideways and go like that, while this one would hit some other resistance and go sideways and down. This one would hit another resistance, go sideways, and start to actually create a chakra again down here. Where then like this current actually loops back that way and comes out this way and starts to eddy in this plane around the chakras that then start to form. Oh my god. Dudes. This thing needs a little more height. Say it like that, I don't know. Can I move it? Okay. Cool. What the? Deselect. Okay. Let's just get rid of this little nook one. It must be beautiful. It must be beautiful. I guess I could do this one a little less flattened. Oh, okay, it's perfectly wide enough. Don't even claim it's not. How dare you? You. I don't know. Sure. Sure. Thinking that maybe like the another thing that would happen would be like as this current goes down, it actually like it should create a chamber type thing or whatever. Like these things. These should be generally some process should be interacting with these flows along these boundaries. So maybe like this current here actually ends up going back. And like forming a current here in like a small, in its own current that's like in here though, off of this chakra, sideways that way, but then back off of the like top of the chakra, back. Oh, there is this tendency in shaligrams for there to be a current flow across like this. Like if this is right here, let's use another color. Oh my god, man, use another color. That's barely another color, dude. This lump, so like this current here off of here. Oh, what the? I don't know why it's doing that. I'll just add another layer. Fuck it. Off of here, and then it's like waterfall across this here, interacting, and then that way forming the actual low boundary though, and then waterfall across this one where they just like systematically do this flow across the next one kind of thing, probably. At least on this side, where the flow is going generally right, up, left. Right, up, left. So right, up. Like this is going this way, this way. So it's all generally right, up, left. With this down to it as well, that's forming there. But then over here is generally left, down, right. So that would suggest that like this eddy that is forming within this region Maybe it would be worth also adding that. Oh, whatever. I was gonna like display. Oops. It's going to try to display this. I guess I can just put it here. So starting from that, instead of doing that, basically, I'm not saying that like these are the same thing. I'm saying if the energy got caught enough in this thing here to create a chakra that didn't actually wrap around, like it actually went back down into the same side and like divided this into two halves, then the current flow from the right side would then interact with the current and flow into the left side and basically become a eddy in a different plane. So then its seed, even though it starts off as an eddy in a counterclockwise eddy, it starts off that way. Oh. But then it becomes a different plane where it's actually in the direction, like, leading to a flow that's related to the chakras like this instead, but in this case that we see, it just did counterclockwise. But then counterclockwise seems to have led to this interesting aspect where it almost like goes far enough that it straightens out. Like, from what, or like, I guess if I started like this, going around, and then it basically just goes straight down and around that way, kind of thing, but like in a chakra way, which then leads to a flow that like goes around the pole, this way. But so, as I was saying, let's use this color, sure. As the flow goes around this way, maybe it also like generally ramps up. And then goes out like that to form again like a lobe. Or Just do that again. But where this one is going the opposite direction. Probably coiling. These two are probably coiling around one another. Like, as they spin. And then again, just flowing, flowing, flowing. Along resistances, but leading to a downward flow here. This being like actually in the cross section, generally speaking, of a flow, these flows, whereas this path here is actually an eddy into sliced in there, so it's not really a cross section, it's perpendicular to that. And then off this way, create another lobe, and another lobe. I didn't do the whatever. You get the point. Does that? Just thinking. At which point, these currents, start to also do in my assessment, I have interpreted that there is a very real, like these flows over here generally going across and down, not along these boundaries though. So there's also that at play. That's actually going like that in the opposite direction. That then continues with the same flow over here in the same direction, but then vice versa. This current on this side goes across and goes this way. Which then leads to these currents interacting with one another. So that when there is like nowhere for the inflowing current to go, it starts to build up pressure at certain focal points, which then are like where these currents meet at this like distal point over here, one flowing one way, another flowing the other way. and they run into each other. And there's all of this pressure of the eddy on this side, which then leads to, let me make this bigger. Which then leads to a flow out that way specifically. But again, these pressures have certain balance points, so it happens at like a, I didn't draw it very well. Let's say here at the 1/3, 2/3 point here, like around what I call the 1/3, 2/3. Where current then flows out of these points, as well as the top and the bottom. And again, over here, although I think this one's actually on this side, usually relative to these 1/3, 2/3 I drew, it's typically there. So then this can expand to have like the next chakra. Like this. Here, say. Where the next lobe, so let's even make it bigger. Where the next lobe then actually forms like that. By these flows connecting to one another in the pressure, basically. As well as can form like this over here. To then form another lobe. But as a function of these pressure points, this here, the center one, probably doesn't just go straight out like this. It goes out and then runs into resistance. And flows more so along like the siphuncle boundary region. Around that region, more related to the siphuncle. Like current, that's like here. But like etching in there and things going on there, but where it's coming out from the upper and lower current flows running into each other, and then forming another lobe, and then an interesting things can happen. So maybe we can just keep drawing, increasing the canvas size. Maybe say, let's say 5,000 height. And 1 to 4, move them all. 1 to 4. Select all. Sure, diesel. Okay. Then let's say that, like, let's see, maybe this lobe has extra current going on, that it wants to expand beyond its boundary, but there's a lot of pressure, like generally outside of this. A lot of pressure that it's just really struggling to overwhelm. But then, like, down here, say, there's more stone. Like, this is the boundary of the stone. There's pressure that is, like, holding that point to be the boundary of the stone, let's say. It's not always happening like that, but it certainly can happen like that. Usually the ammonite, like, grows outside of the stone, so the boundary can be more so, like, here, more realistically. Like, if there is literally, like, a top, now we've got, like, an ammonite, like a literal shaligram that has, like, a top here. I should probably draw it up. It tends to be like node kind of thing, like that. And then let's say the base is, like, weirdly shaped. So below this, down here, so there's pressure outside here. Some reason there's pressure, let's say. That's then, like, this eddy wants to grow larger, and it's not able to vent from the pressure holding it in. So typically that's because there's stone there, and it's harder to vent when it hasn't actually eroded the shape enough to be, like, venting this eddy outside of the stone. Once it erodes windows into the stone, like shaligrams tend to have, then just for kind of comparison, let's see, what did we draw here? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Got a little third eye there too. Just kind of compare it. I'll just put it here, I guess. But then, let's say, I didn't account for, I guess I should add, as this eddy is happening, that would be happening, like, like, out from behind there and around the chakras. I don't know if, and like at different points as well, possibly in different directions again, but where this eddy is flowing generally towards the center, where all this pressure is, so it vents out along these paths and creates these paths around this eddy that is happening. So then we have this other, like, venting mechanism happening, but again it's venting into itself, so it, like, vents along these boundaries. So that's another aspect of the actual features of the Shaligram. But let's say that the boundary is actually this green one. That's instead of this brown one, and it hasn't actually eroded out of the stone like this. But so that this last chamber is more contained. I don't know what layer it is, whatever. 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 Okay. So then there's like this going on, but there's pressure that was like preventing it. For whatever reason, there's pressure that's preventing it from flowing in the typical direction. So, and like up here too. So it flows like preferentially, generally down, let's say. So my thought is, it can do this thing where, like, say, this flow off of here, instead of going that way, like, is brought down to another region down here, some other region like that, like the starting region up here kind of thing, even. Where the flow is brought down there, and if it's contained, it can eddy there. So we have a flow going counterclockwise here, and a flow going clockwise above it. And then, in some circumstances, this could then couple to begin to like form like chakra type things here, to make it more chakra like, and with enough energy. I don't know why it wouldn't stabilize earlier. Like typically it wouldn't do this because it would stabilize already over here probably. Like if the chakras were to be more likely to like coalesce over here, then they wouldn't coalesce over here. They would coalesce over here. But there still is a like mechanism in shaligrams that's common for them to have this additional aspect where like this can behave as one lobe like over here, where then down here another lobe like over here, counter to this lobe, is down here, where then it like starts the process anew, but has like a counterpart to make the chakras easier rather than having to do like dividing kind of thing. Like this really started with this divide, like a dividing of a cell almost. Kind of interesting. Divide a cell, create an eddy in a different plane. What the? But so like, not only an eddy in a different plane though, like a higher energy system, because it starts out with a very basic eddy that then buckles basically because it has nowhere to go and is contained, but is a current flow, so it has like a flow behind it that continues the process. So then it buckles to a point where it actually forms a interior segment, some extensional lobe, like this, but sometimes it can cut into this upper thing that it forms to turn it into a chakra around which a process like this can happen, it seems. Can happen and then like lead to the more typical shaligrams we see. So like it makes me think of like this one, where it actually has an eddy going into it. It even has a chakra like back in there, a chakra that kind of starts as if it's actually like one of those nubs on the eddy, because there's not, I don't think there even is one on this. Let's look at this. So cool. This one's incredible. This chakra really looks like, on both of the chakras even, look kind of like they're the nub on the thing that then like became, I think I just explained this shaligram. Like if what we did here happened where the current came in like this, got into the rock far enough, it didn't just create the chakra here because that goes like down through, it got in enough that the rock like still protected it as this process happened. So there's like a layer basically over top this closing it, but that's punctured through by an eddy flow like that. This shaligram is basically that is what happened. That is what happened here. I didn't mean to, but I described this shaligram in particular, how it happened. No one drilled into this shaligram. This formed this way. Shaligrams are incredible. There are several examples of this feature found in shaligrams. Oh, yeah. I was trying to find this stuff. It's so expensive. It's like a shaligram. Just to put some paste on the shaligram, it just seems right. What was I doing? What do you mean short-term memory loss? What do you mean short-term memory loss? Oh yeah, I was looking for other examples like this. I don't know, it doesn't matter. I don't need to convince you of anything. Like here's another one where instead it drills here, so notice it has a little tab. So it's doing it here, where it has an eddy that is then buckling. And like in this case, not really creating like a nucleus structure that's eddied. That's eroded, sorry. Eddied. Eddy. But then it does the same thing where the current gets in, seemingly the same current based on its like size. You can kind of see the nucleus area there as well, less eroded for sure. But then this gets in here and goes out over here, where it just goes at an angle and like deflects, almost reflects like off like in a physics sense, off of resistance, and then comes out, and then but creates an eddy here as well that leads to like these chakras. But really it's just a current bouncing off of resistance that has a like eddy structure to the current, because it's flowing as an eddy, like drilling through the high pressures. So there's that one with some other features that are like circle, erosional. It doesn't matter. I think I'm tired enough. I'm just gonna probably stop here. That was cool. All from this Shaligram, which I must have linked. I guess I didn't link it. Here it is. Rudraksh Guru. So it's from Rudraksh Guru. Probably looked at it before. I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry. Oh, wow. There's a little one there. Can almost see the chakra, other half of the chakra here. Like chakra going down this way to be opposite to here. But it's only one side of the chakra, where then it has like another side over there. So it's kind of going to a point there that is generally related to there. And then the picture we were looking at, where we don't see that over there. We really don't see that. But it's there. Whatever exactly we saw. Maybe it's here. Definitely something going on there. Okay, yeah, I'm going to bed now. Well, not now, but soon. Done streaming. See you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I hope that was exciting. That's how Shaligrams are. They're awesome. I should probably show some. It's kind of like... Here's an example of one that's doing that thing. It's almost like it did it so in here that it wrapped back around to the other side almost. Like it maybe was doing it over here, but then wrapped back around. actually. I'm thinking this one's going this way. Point is, this type of thing can be applied to these. They are microcosmic examples of the macrocosm, in that they are the universe, and they are macroscopic examples of the microcosm, in that they are the universe. The iterative fundamental particles that occur across all infinite scales of the universe are also visible in shaligrams to be studied. And in ammonites, once we realize it, but shaligrams really are exceptional. They are exceptional. I did prepare. I was thinking, maybe I don't leave. I'm just tired though. I was thinking about doing that. The next one that's rotating through right now. Not this one, this one. It's a little guy here. Take it off the buffet table. Okay. Now use that. Let's check it out. Bada bing. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, we're good. Whoa. Probably hide that. That other one's fun, even though we've been staring at it forever. Here's an example of it cutting. Where it has a lobe. Like here, but then it cuts. And then up top and bottom, how it cuts. So it's like there's rock here, and it just cuts into the rock, into resistance though, and then deflects. So that leads to that kind of cutting that sometimes has the material on both sides with just the cut visible. So we're seeing a cut here of that nature. Let's see. And then if we turn this, we should see some cool stuff like what? Where's the boundary? Like, is this the boundary? Where the imprint of the seashell is? What's up with that? It's such a Zelda music. I'm just holding it with my hand though. I didn't prepare for this part. Even closer. Makes perfect sense. Okay. It's like not getting focus at any point. What the freak? There we go. It's the way the grains are. Oh my god. Wow. Oh, the striations on this. Like, what? Trying to see if they actually continue and abruptly change direction. It's like the same path. It's too hard. I don't have anything I usually. No, actually, maybe this will work. Let's look at the back. I believe this is a chakra. Let me zoom out. The striations are even doing it. The little catching on themselves kind of thing. Like the bottom, it's going across, and then way up at where the... Maybe I can just go like this. Let's see, we got down here, cross like this. A little bit of a bend, probably, from looking like from there. But then this boundary, where generally flows are this way, over here. And then over here, they are generally this way, though. Seems to be up here, too. Where, like, around this, they kind of abruptly bend. Like, there's definitely a bend there. That maybe is not so much there, though. And then some stuff going on the side here. With generally this, though. Some boundary of this system that's generally here, also. Interestingly, it's like on almost like it's onshore. Like it could form a chakra more like up down in this image, like layered like this way. Oops, whatever. But it also could do it more with an eddy around like that. Like, like, I guess I'm thinking. I don't know where a good example is. There's another one with some drill holes in it. This one has multiple drill holes that are actually forming like their own chakra-like type structure to it there. To like a chakra over here, but the chakra's back there. Because that's like the dominant eddy that formed. But it seems to have been forming possible chakra up here as well for some reason. Just where it's on the boundary, like this, where it could, this one even, like it's forming some weird thing off the side that could be like wrapped around as if it's actually part of the structure, but it actually goes up that way because the ammonite structure is forming back that way into the stone. So it's like, instead of being an eddy on the stone, it's into the stone a bit, so it's just tilted down into the stone, the eddy. So it seems like it's kind of forming like a matrix over top the chakra kind of structure here, with the eddy down underneath it as well. So it's not quite a chakra. It's actually, I mean, it's a chakra, but it's like down at that point. Like the direction of the chakra would be down, like directly down that way. So that then the eddy forms around it like there, rather than an eddy forming like this way around the chakra, and then where the chakra is pointing upward, and it's pointing downward into this. So it's unsure which one it's doing, is my interpretation on this here. Essentially. Just competing eddies is what I mean by unsure. Usually, when there are competing eddies, a dominant eddy reigns supreme, and all the other eddies' influences on the matrix are much more subtle or practically invisible almost. If not able to see. Very cool the way these striations are here. Oh my god. And then boom over. Can definitely see little like slope things on the left side inside there. not sure what that is. So notice it's very porous because the stone has been eroded in these locations, particularly compared to the surroundings, which still is probably porous because current is flowing through the stone, but it's especially flowing through these types of locations where it's venting. I said venting, but I'm not actually sure in this case that this is venting and not going in, but probably venting because it's actually probably more so related to these channels down through that are being etched that we were talking about. This path. Directly opposite there. Is what we were just looking at here. Wow. People just don't know about shaligrams. Seems we can see little pores around the lighter color areas where current flows went through and eroded out the materials. Looking at the freaking bottom, and not even the chakra itself. Bottom's pretty sweet, not gonna lie. It definitely warrants some attention. What's going on with this? Okay, I need to... Need to stand it on something. It's got a better angle. Okay, I could do this forever. I'll be back some other time. Got this image over here. I will be back. Thanks for watching, guys. Till then, Shaligram Zone 25. We made it already. Holy crap. That means I'm probably... I got so many hours of Shaligram videos.